Well, okay. Can you all hear me for the start? Everybody? Yeah. There's one nod, one tying the hair up, and one smiling. So I'm assuming everybody can hear me. Oh, one having a drink. That's a good idea. Yeah. Nothing alcoholic in there, as I trust.
Just a cup of tea.
Just a cup of tea. Well done. Okay, because we're on to the fitness here. Yeah. So we were asked to host this or to do a talk about Hallcross and what our involvement with the diabetes program, I think, and then to take any questions you guys have. Basically, Hallcross is responsible for delivering the NHS health check in both Doncaster and Barnsley. Are you all aware of the NHS health check service?
Yeah.
One nod, one cup down, and one looking bemused. Two bemused. Do I take that? Are you all aware of it, or are you not aware of the NHS health check service?
I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
Oh, well done. Good. Yeah. Good. So, do you want me to go through quickly what we do, or you're all very happy with what we do?
I think it might be good, Chris, if you do, because this is being recorded. So after this is obviously finished and over and done with the meeting, I can upload this online. So if anybody was trying to access the meeting with diabetes and then weren't able to, then they can watch this back later on.
Okay, that seems a good idea. We'll do our best then. Basically, we've been providing NHS health checks for 5 years in Doncaster and just coming up to 2 years in Barnsley. We've provided over 50,000 health checks in those two areas in that period of time, mainly through GP partners. Hallcross as a company is wholly owned by 5 GP practices in Doncaster and came into existence about 8 or 9 years ago, particularly to look at health-related issues and how we could get the population more healthy, rather than traditionally where I come from as a GP manager, as a GP practice manager, trying to cure people's illnesses. So that's the premise that we have. And the NHS health check was brought into play about 7 years ago as something fairly unique in the world in trying to get people to be healthier and to look after themselves better, rather than come ill and the health services take over from them when they when they get ill. So the NHS health check is a service where we can check for what we call cardiovascular health. Now I've got all health professionals here, you'll all know what cardiovascular health is. It's how your heart works and how the blood goes around your body, basically, and how it feeds all the vital organs, including your noddle, to make sure everything works properly. So the NHS health check takes about 15 minutes and goes through a range of things, including a little finger prick of blood, which gives us a cholesterol check, and if we need to, a diabetes check, which is what we're talking about here in particular. So over and above that, we look at the well-being of the person. So we look at your weight and your height, which gives us your BMI. We look at your diet and we look at your exercise, and we come up with a thing in the end when we put all these things together called a Q risk. And the Q risk is the possibility or the likelihood of you having a heart attack or a stroke in the next 10 years. Now, looking around the audience I've got at the moment, I've suddenly got a cupboard in the top left-hand corner, but never mind, somebody's gone from there. Looking at the audience we have at the moment, apart from the cupboard in the top, in the middle corner, we're all fairly young and probably too young to have the health checks. You have to be 40 to 74. Oh, hello, someone's come back again. The reason you have to be 40 to 74 is most serious illnesses, if you like, manifest themselves after the age of 40. Not all illnesses, but most of the things cardiovascular. You start having problems, hopefully not too many problems, but you can start having problems over the age of 40. So the NHS health check goes from the age of 40 to 74. The reason it stops at 74 is when you're 75, you're automatically entitled to an annual health check anyway through your GP practice. Okay, so that's a thumbnail print of what the NHS health check actually is. You guys are particularly interested in the diabetes area, and it's an area we're particularly keen in as well. We one of the checks I said we did with the finger prick check is that we have what we call an HbA1c test, which our pharmacist I think will be fully aware of, to check to see the blood sugar level. Now this isn't a blood glucose level, a blood glucose check, which is very, very inaccurate. You'll see a young lady from Hallcross with the curly hair is holding up an HbA1c box. If she opens the box, she's going to open the box now from the cupboard. She's going to open the box and she's going to show you an HbA1c kit, if you like. So this is the secondary one we do. We always do a cholesterol level because everybody needs to know what their cholesterol level is. But we only do a diabetes check if there are indicators. So if your BMI is over 30, if you have a family history of diabetes or something like that, then we will do the diabetes check. So the young lady who, in my screen, is the second on the left and just moved out the cupboard, she is holding the diabetes check. As you can see, it's a very, very small little machine. And she's showing you the little finger prick thing that we do to take the blood sample. When we take the blood sample, we pop that in that little machine, and that gives us a reading, and that gives us a reading of your HbA1c to see if you're diabetic or not diabetic, or on the verge of being diabetic, peri-diabetic. So we can advise the patients on diabetes whether their sugar level is normal, and therefore they don't have to worry about diabetes. They might have to worry about other things, but don't have to worry about diabetes, or whether their blood sugar is in the diabetic range. And if it's in the diabetic range, we are not a diagnostic service, so we don't tell a patient ever that they have got diabetes. We'll refer them back to their GP practice, or if they're in the GP practice having the check done there, then the healthcare assistant, who usually does the check, will refer them on to either a nurse specialist on diabetes that they have in the practice, or onto a GP. And it'll be them that break the news to the patient that they are actually diabetic. Hopefully, the service, and we do pick up a few, we'll pick up a few that are not quite diabetic, that are on the verge of being diabetic, what we call peri-diabetic or pre-diabetic. In Doncaster and in Barnsley, there's now, in fact, nationally, there's now a very good service, which is an 8-week check. And do anybody know about the 8-week check peri-diabetic service? No, there's one shake, there's one nod. No. Oh yeah, well yes, there's one nod, one shake, and a few bemused look. Yeah, the service has been only in operation for a couple of years now nationally, and has been rolled out to various areas. So Doncaster was quite lucky in getting it within the first year, and Barnsley within the second year. So I said it's an 8-week course which looks at a range of activities and information to actually help you not become diabetic. So it looks at exercise, it looks at your diet, it looks at your lifestyle. It tries to help you through a various range of things. So in the end, hopefully your blood sugar level has dropped below that danger area. And it's been very successful nationally. A lot of people who would probably have carried on to develop diabetes actually have not developed diabetes because of that. So there is good evidence now that type 2 diabetes, which I think we need to be aware that we're talking really about type 2 diabetes, which can be reversed, it would appear now. If we look after ourselves better, we can reduce the effect of diabetes, and or we can possibly reverse it. Certainly if we catch it early enough by good interventions of diet, good interventions of exercise, good interventions of healthy lifestyle, we can probably reverse diabetes. And there are cases now where people have been certainly peri-diabetic, and certain people that have been on the lower end of diabetes, where that blood sugar level has gone down below that, and in effect their diabetes has, well, I won't say been cured, but is no longer an important part of their life. So diabetes doesn't necessarily, or type 2 diabetes doesn't necessarily have to be for life now, though I accept it will be for an awful lot of people, because if your body isn't producing the right chemicals, if you like, to keep your blood sugar at a proper level, then you probably will always have diabetes. But we can all make a difference. We can all make diabetes, our suffering from diabetes, so much better if we look after ourselves, if we exercise properly, and if we eat the right food, basically. Try to cut out all the sugary stuff, and look after yourself better. Do plenty of exercise. And obviously, if you are diabetic, make sure you go for all your checks, either your annual check or your half annually check, whichever you have to do, to keep yourself as fit as you possibly can. But be aware always with diabetes of the dangers of numbness in the feet and the toes, because one of the big problems, I wish to sort of put people off, but one of the big problems with diabetes, if we don't look after it properly, is amputations is one of the biggest areas of diabetes problems. And we can keep away from that if we look after ourselves and if we follow basic rules, if you like, of looking after ourselves. So as a service, we're looking to pick up diabetics, refer them into the NHS, into the GP practice, and then from there looked after as their needs are through the normal GP practice services. So we're very much at Hallcross and the NHS Health Check, very much an ancillary service that picks up people early with diabetes, with cholesterol, with a big one. We pick up a huge amount of people with high blood pressure, and then we can look at helping those people to lead a better, healthier life, and hopefully not develop further illnesses and keep healthy. So that's my little talk on the service and how we're affecting diabetes. So I think we'll fling it open to questions. I have my team around me. Abby, who will give you a quick wave. She is one of the key people who does the actual health checks with her team out in the community. And she also works very closely with the GP practices to make sure GP practices get the right training to do the health checks effectively. And also is responsible for working with our IT department to make sure the software that we put into all the practices and we use ourselves is effective in recording all the information we actually do. So that's Abby, who just gave you a wave. Lynn is who's going to give you a wave now. Lynn is the one that that showed you the HbA1c, and she's our business and training manager. So she is involved very closely with the training and development of all the services that we do, and how we hope to develop the service in the future to cover more areas. So that's me. I've talked an awful lot of time, so I'll fling the thing open now to anyone else who wants to ask any questions of any of the team we've got here.
Well, in the chat we've actually got at the minute, there's myself who's public health, and there's also Hannah Wild, who's also public health. We've also got Yeling, who's the Primary Care Network pharmacist, and we've also got Anna Hardman, sorry Hannah, I called you Hannah then, who's a dietitian. So because we've got no residents logged in at the minute, I don't know if it might be worthwhile having a conversation around diabetes itself and the current situation, or anything that might help someone, because like I said, it is being recorded and it will be up online, so maybe we could have like a generic chat, or if you have questions.
Yeah, come along then. Generic chatting. Who wants to chat about anything?
Everyone goes quiet.
I'll talk. I think there's quite a lot of uncertainty, isn't there, about people worried, because one of the risk factors of COVID-19 is having underlying diabetes as well, and being overweight. And I think sort of I work both within the NHS and as a freelance dietitian, and I think for me it's been a lot of like people worried about, can diet make a difference to preventing getting COVID-19, and there's a lot about immune systems and that as well. Just from sort of there's no diet, and unfortunately there's nothing that's out there that's evidence-based to suggest that it will prevent people from getting COVID-19. We just recommend a well-balanced diet with sufficient amount of fruits and vegetables, just to make sure people are getting enough vitamin C. vitamin C in itself isn't immune boosting, so people think that it'll stop them getting the COVID-19, but unfortunately there is no evidence out there. So for anybody with diabetes, we just recommend your general advice is 3 regular meals, 5 portions of fruit and vegetables, and if they did have any questions relating to COVID-19 and diet, they can always sort of drop a message, or can they drop in a chat or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, actually, all of that. The better we look after ourselves, by and large, the stronger our immune system will be. So the better food we put into ourselves, the more exercise we can do, the more we can look after ourselves. Unfortunately, the more we can self-isolate as well in this, the less likely we are to get the virus, hopefully.
A lot of people are wondering if they should buy supplementation. I don't know whether the pharmacist who's in here has seen an influx in vitamins and minerals being bought on over the counter, but there is no evidence to suggest additional supplementation can make any difference in preventing or treating of COVID-19 as well. So that's a little bit of an update on diet, and like rightly so, Chris, like it's a well-balanced diet, and I think it's a really difficult time. People are finding it difficult to get out and get fruit and vegetables and things like that. I'm worried about the nutritional quality of the diet, so just really to let them know that tinned fruit and vegetables is as nourishing or frozen as fresh fruit and vegetables as well. So and there is lots of resources out there. If people are even struggling to get hold of food due to financial, there's the food banks which they can utilise, and many people are doing that at this difficult time. So there's that out there, and I don't know whether in Doncaster there's anything more specific relating to food and vulnerability.
Yeah, we've got quite a lot of food banks going on at the minute across Doncaster. So if there is anybody who is needing to access these food banks, if you get in touch with one of the Doncaster officers, so there's myself, Faye McDowell, Marianne Turner, Hannah McWilliams, and Jess Woodward. Sorry, just got a second name then. So we can direct them to the local food banks which are available, and also with them there's food parcels, and also there's the community hub as well that's been set up in Doncaster. So every resident in Doncaster should have received a postcard with that community hub number on, where they can order food parcels or even get advice or help around the mental well-being, and all different kind of other resources as well. So that is available in Doncaster. So like what Hannah just said about, I keep calling you Hannah, Anna, just because there's a Hannah in this chat.
Don't worry about it, Anna, Hannah, whatever you want to call me.
So like Anna just said about the supplement, Jayling, have you had anything around that? Anyone come and ask you regarding supplements or vitamins in pharmacy? Anybody request anything like that?
We've been not working in community practice. I've had no personal experience of anybody coming into the community and asking for supplements, but I completely agree with Anna in saying that there is no evidence for any supplements to support the prevention of getting COVID-19. What I would say from a pharmacy point of view is obviously patients to try and not overorder or ask for multiple months of prescriptions, just because it affects the supply chain of medication, and if possible to download the NHS app, because it really helps support community pharmacies in getting the prescription orders in, because it kind of just goes directly to the surgery instead of being having the community pharmacy as the middleman, so to speak. So that's what I would really recommend it during at this time.
That's fantastic. Thank you ever so much for that. Is there anything else anybody would like to contribute to this generic chat that we're having at the minute?
I think it's probably important for people to sort of look after the physical well-being with physical activity as well. Obviously, it is really difficult at the moment with the stay-at-home advice, but there are lots of resources out there for people. So Sport England at the moment have launched a new campaign. It's called Join the Movement, and they're using the hashtag #StayInWorkout. I know in Doncaster there's a lot of other community organisations that are supporting this as well. And any resources that we've found that are really useful We are resharing them on the Get Doncaster Moving social media and all those channels, but if people do need those resources, we are not at the moment, but we are looking in the future to have these printed. But obviously with the pace of things and ever-changing advice, it's really difficult to keep up with it. But we would just say, just try to sit less, move more, even if it's just trying to walk around your living room, put some music on, have a bit of a dance, whatever it is, sit to stand. There are lots of resources out there. I know the NHS has some specific ones as well. And I'm sure we can get those shared through the Well Doncaster channels as easy as possible.
Fantastic. Is there any last things from you, Chris?
I think this has all been very, very useful. It's a shame we haven't got some of our patients on board, but hopefully they will download this and listen to it later. I think the message is a message of hope. I think if we look after ourselves as well as we can, if we eat the right food, if we exercise as much as we can, if we keep our minds active, I think this is a really important thing. Do crosswords, do puzzles, do quizzes with members of the family, etc. Even do online games if you're into that sort of thing. Build cities. There's some wonderful games out there. You can build cities. I came across Risk. I don't know if anybody remember when you were kids playing Risk and dominating the whole world. I came across that on the internet the other day, and I'm sort of halfway to dominating the world now. So next time you see me, I'll have a crown on my head probably. But it's really stay positive. We've gone 3 weeks through this lockdown period. We're probably going to go another 3 weeks through it. Unfortunately, the death rates are, well, sort of stabilising now, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And what we've done as a community, both in Doncaster and nationally, is absolutely fantastic. I think the applause to the NHS that's been happening on a Thursday night has been inspirational, and certainly where we live, we're in a small village, the whole village comes out, you know, they're all apart, obviously 7 feet apart, but they're all applauding with pots and pans and everything. So I think the whole thing is keep positive. This has been something that none of us have ever lived through before, and that includes the oldest one here, which I think is me. None of us have ever lived through anything like this before. Hopefully we'll never live through anything like this again, but we'll come out the other end stronger if we look after ourselves and look after each other as well. So my message is a message of carry on looking after yourselves. When you get the opportunity for your NHS health check, when this is all back on running, make sure you take that, because we'll be able to help you look after yourself better. So that's my message of hope. Take care and look after yourself.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, thank you ever so much for everyone for joining in, and thank you for your support today. Chris, that was an absolutely beautiful little message there, so I really enjoyed that. So, but thank you ever so much, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording of the meeting, but if anybody is watching this back later and you do have any questions, just please comment on the video and we will get back to you. So thank you ever so much, everyone.